No. All right, let's move on to the next one. Yeah, I think this was the one. Okay. So this ruling, as dumb as this ruling was actually came up during the Trump era. Um, they made such a big deal about this rule, I should say, this rule that pretty much basically was saying that since the state legislatures are responsible for the voting that happens in their state, then they should have complete and other power over it. Such as, yeah, even though the voters did vote for candidate A, we feel as state legislators that we should give our votes to candidate B because we should have the power to do that.
Because we're elected officials
Because
too.
we're elected. I'm just trying to put it in basic layman terms. Basically, to make it even, to simplify it even more, they want to have the state legislators wants to have the power to decide where their where the votes go in their state. Period. Point blank. That was pretty much it. We have the power. It could be a landslide from that state. Oh well. We feel that this county was in bad faith when they voted the way they voted. We feel like there was some fraud in this county. We can't prove it in time. So we just decided we're just not going to, and I'm not lying. We just decided we're just not going to count their votes until we have a investigation. So we're not even going to count that county's votes.
The magic of states' rights.
Yeah. So here is the Supreme Court decision on that.
A major ruling yesterday from the Supreme Court, which made it more difficult for the big lie to repeat itself in 2024. The case, Moore versus Harper, based out of North Carolina, centered on a radical theory known as the independent state legislature theory. It would have given state legislatures virtually unchecked power over federal elections based on an extreme interpretation of the Constitution's elections clause. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court rejected that anti-democratic theory with Chief Justice John Roberts and Justices Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett siding with the liberals. In his opinion, the Chief Justice writes, the Elections Clause does not insulate state legislatures from the ordinary exercise of state judicial review, adding that the legislatures, the framers recognized, are the mere creatures of the state constitutions and cannot be greater than their creators. John Eastman, a legal advisor to Donald Trump, embraced this fringe theory as a way to overturn the 2020 election, arguing that then Vice President Mike Pence had the power to refuse to certify the results. In an email exchange with NBC News, Eastman claimed the ruling would prevent legislatures from addressing illegality and fraud in a timely manner. When asked if the ruling invalidates the arguments he made in 2020, Eastman wrote, quote, no, but it will be murkier than it was previously. Joining us now to delve deeper into this ruling, senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Josh Gerstein. Josh, talk about, if you could, what was at stake?
Well, this is pretty significant, Mika, on two different fronts. One, the one you just mentioned involving the 2024 presidential race and the possibility that you could have seen Republicans, specifically former President Trump, put forward this kind of effort to put state legislatures on steroids, you might say, to say that they could be the ultimate arbiter of who won an election in their state. And that obviously could have led to post-election chaos. That is the plan that the Trump team tried to start to run in 2020, but basically got cut off at the pass. And the Supreme Court through the reasoning of its ruling, makes it seem like that's a lot less likely here. The second front, of course, is the issue of control of the U.S. House of Representatives, and this decision seemed to shift the ground in favor of Democrats in the overall way in which the redistricting is held to set up the districts.
I forgot to add this little caveat, and then I'll open it up to everybody. Any issues with the mapping, gerrymandering, state voting rights, and everything else, you can take your issues to a judge and have a judge decide on it. That, what he was saying was, it was taking that away. Like, you can't even go to a judge to look this over. It was just flat out, we said it, it is what it is. A judge said that you was wrong. Judge doesn't have more power than the legislator. We made that decision. This was so cringy at its best, because I know everybody's thinking of the president, and you should be. Not getting you wrong, you should be. But just think about it. They could do this to the governor of their state. They could be the state legislator forever. Hell, at some point, they can will their seat in the state legislature to their sons and daughters, because they have all power. They could be there for as long as they want to. And they can decide who stays and who goes. That was really creepy. It's really creepy. I appreciate the Supreme Court putting a stop to this, because just that mindset of a group of guys and girls deciding, hey, we decide what's going on in this state, and the conversation is done. See y'all next week.
But you do realize that has been the way for the vast majority of the nation's existence, right? Like, what you're basing your normalcy off of is actually quite abnormal in the way that America operates. So, to me, the decision came out, on the better side of it, I suppose. But this was a Supreme Court protecting the judiciary more than it was the Supreme Court protecting voters, right? The voters just got the benefit, but the Supreme Court was really protecting the judiciary. They don't like having someone take away their authority or their power, and this would make it so state courts no longer have the ability to oversee, the behaviors of the legislature. And then, like, one of your points you raised about, how they could just pick somebody. Here in Georgia, they pretty much made that law, right? So I really want people to not just look at it as far as what's happening today, but look at it in terms of the tapestry of America. And to me, what it's saying, all these decisions on so many different levels, is how do we recreate the America, the infrastructure for the America that existed before all of these different groups had voices. Yep. Right? So they're just picking and choosing as they kind of work their way through.
All right, Tracy done went to church with the church.
It's hot in here. I don't want to turn on the air conditioner because then I won't be able to hear.
But go ahead, Tracy.
Everything Thea said. I mean, this country is just messed up. You get a bunch of Republicans, and it's normal. I mean, I guess it could happen in a blue state, supposedly, where they just get power and don't want it. But basically, this is what happens when people don't vote. We have a huge majority of the country that just sits at home, and then you get these radical nitwits that just want to say, you know what, doesn't matter. We don't like who you pick. We want to pick this guy instead of this guy, and people are okay with it. It's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating.
Anna?
I don't really have too much to add, and I am really trying to take in all of the rulings. It is difficult to classify a ruling as good or bad. I don't know. I need to read over a lot more than what I've heard.
All right.
But one thing I would say is I'm going to disagree with Tracy in order to agree with Tracy. Um, no, seriously. So where I disagree is more on an art, not a substance thing. Where she's saying this is, people don't vote. My pushback when I hear that particular criticism is people are voting. People are voting in amazing numbers in the last few elections, mainly because they're polarized elections. It's true, but they're voting. It's the jacked up corruption in the two parties, corruption in the DNC and their Republican counterpart, the way that the Senate is about the fairest thing we got. I'm sorry. The House, where gerrymandering is just what it is, the Electoral College, which favors small states over populated states, right? So many things are messed up in it. So where I disagree is I don't blame it on people not voting. Where I do agree is everything is so jacked up. Like, I can understand why a person would say to me, that's why I don't vote for nobody. I don't even plan it. I can understand why they say it. And then it's on me to take the time to explain how you can go for small wins, how you can organize and plan to get bigger wins, how to get the things you want. That's a 20, 30-year process. That's not a one election kind of thing. So here's how we reverse engineer. Like, I can have those conversations with a person who says that. But they don't make it easy. Like, I think we said this before in previous videos. I'm not a Democrat. I mean, I have to vote Democrat because of the way my state is set up, which feeds back into the jacked up mess where we deal with. But I'm very much an independent because my politics are black, right? So black, working class, and vulnerable groups. Those is like how if you're gonna put me in a bubble. So that's where I move from. But it's just disheartening. And like I try to say, Democrats, give us something to work with, right? I mean, help make it easier for us to advocate for people to vote for you. Because, like it or not, this is where I'm way opposed to a lot of the way how the third party people are functioning right now, because they're in like this make believe land. But the reality is, we got two choices. It shouldn't be that way. It should be much broader, but it's not. So we got this jacked up system. So you really got two ways to play it. Well, three ways. You can vote, not vote, or I don't know. But Democrats don't make it easy, man. Right?
Nope,
Democrats are so lazy. They don't come out and say with their chest out. They don't say it with their chest. Here's what we're going to work on. Here's what we're fighting for. We're going to make all the noise that we can make. We're not going to let off of it. We're not. They don't do that. They speak up for a second and then they go quiet. Whereas the Republicans
constantly.
Constant.
Yep, you gotta give them they do. They do know how to speak.
And this is, and I'm gonna do the same thing Theus just did. I'm gonna disagree slightly. And trust me, brother, when I tell you it's so slightly, it's
I'm good,
nitpicking.
brother.
It's nitpicking. Democrats will speak a huge game. Huge, fantastic, marvelous, great speeches backwards and forwards. About 6 months before the elections.
Yes.
You got another 90 days. I'll just put it that. You got a good 90 days after the election. And then nothing. Nothing. You couldn't shut a Democrat candidate up 6 months before the election. Get out of my emails, get out of my YouTube, just leave me alone. You couldn't shut them up. But boy, after them 90 days after the election is over with. Are y'all here?
Yeah, that's my point.
Y'all still working? What happened?
They don't make it easy because I try to be a straight shooter here. The Democrats are corrupt. The Republicans are ideologues and zealots, right? They're straight up dangerous in my view. Not just because from my black perspective, this is how they're dangerous. I mean, they're dangerous to black people, queer people, indigenous people. The only people who are not in danger by these people right now, because they'll get you later, would be the larger Asian community. That's it. But they'll come for you next because you got the money. You're the one taking their power. So they're going to come for you next. But right now they're going to deal with us because we're easier. So it's like you got two bad choices, which is why I hear you, third-party people. I hear you. I'm just saying you still have to function in the world that we're in. So how do we all get together to make your way feasible? That's a different discussion. But my goodness, Biden.
I'll
Biden.
say this.
What's
I didn't
going
even know,
on with Schumer?
Here's what I'll say.
Go ahead,
I didn't
Tracy.
even know what a parliamentarian was until this administration. Never heard of it. Didn't know what it was. I was like, what are y'all talking about? What?
They popped their head up in They popped their head up with Obama
I'm talking
and
about
Trump.
I didn't hear about it. I didn't. I guess I wasn't paying attention or something. Like, oh, who?
The first time I heard about it was during Trump when he wanted something.
He fired them.
And, yeah.
And you can do that. And that
he
I
fired
think
one
that's
of
what
them, and he fired one of them and replaced them with somebody who would agree with him and got exactly what he wanted.
That's what Mickey's
but
talking
it was
about.
Congress that did that, though.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? That's why I'm like, we got to blame the right people.
Yep, they sure did. If it wasn't for Andrew Yang, Bernie would not have been on that ballot in New York. Wouldn't have been. They definitely tried to be. Oh, and this time, I just love how they gaslight democracy. I did a whole video on it. You might want to catch it. But I'm sick. I'm sick of the Democratic Party gaslight. You don't believe in democracy, which we don't have a democracy, but that's a whole different discussion. You don't have a democracy when you don't have debates. That's all I'm going to say. If you can't even have a debate to defend your record, something wrong with you. Something real wrong with you. That means your record isn't as good as you think it is.
Well, I don't think that's not the issue. The problem is, like I said about the corruption piece, right? The Democrats play this the same way every election. I think Obama might be like a hiccup to them. I don't know.
They've always had debates.
But they always controlled them, right? So when it was Obama's re-election, he did not have to sit there and debate a bunch of people. He didn't have to, right?
I don't think they were just as blasé fair. Like they're straight up come like, no, it won't be a debate.
No, they do it every time. With an incumbent president, they clear the field. Both parties do it. When you have an incumbent president, the party structure is you don't run against our person in this election. Y'all wait your turn. When it's time for a changing of the guard, doors are open. So with this is actually following true to form for them. My objection though is if you're gonna go out there and debate, these are words, right? It's not like you're gonna run out of words. So if you can't defend yourself as an incumbent in your primary,
exactly.
what are you afraid of?
That's the
Now,
question.
maybe you're not afraid. Right. Maybe you're not afraid. Maybe you're just lazy. But the problem with that is your
That's
laziness
it.
and you're
And
playing it
it
safe
gives you good
places
practice
us
for
in
what
danger.
Trump is going to do. Because let's face it, Trump is going to be the nominee. None of the others have any chance. Trump is the nominee. You gonna tell me you're gonna take a year and a half break? Just be like, okay, and then I'll wait. Nah. It if not for just
But
the
that's just it.
practice of debating, just to get yourself into it.
Well,
No, I
well,
don't
he
got a
can
problem.
get practice. He can get practice anyway because we're all political junkies, right? So we've watched plenty of debates. They're a clown show. They don't ever get into any real issues. It's
No.
all about sound bites. It's all about
Yep.
some weird emotional play. So there's really no benefit to them being in a debate, period, unless you're gonna have a debate, which we haven't. We don't do that anymore, except for on like the state level, right? Or sometimes the vice president might have to actually have a real conversation with their opponent. But for the most part, it's just a smoke and mirrors display,
I
right?
mean, they're all
So
terrible.
no, I'm just saying, not even just from terrible. It's literally theatrics. Like they don't get into any policy discussions because if they speak on
That's it.
policy, two things will happen. One, us, the political junkies and the people who paid attention are going to hold them accountable and hang them out to dry for every word they said in that debate. So that's a negative outcome. They don't want that. Or two, their opponent is going to chop and screw everything they said, and it'll just be a
That
bad
is a
cycle.
bad.
There's no upside.
In my opinion, that's a very bad look. If I'm defending my record, bring on Marianne, RFK, bring them out
But who?
any place,
But
anytime.
But wait a minute,
all
but
right, I love what you just
Tracy,
said.
I
Think
get what
about
you're
it though.
let me say this. I get exactly what you're saying. I really do. I totally agree with you. But you're talking about the good old debates of old. This right now is no more than
I'm talking about
TV show episodes.
stop gaslighting. You say you're for democracy
But
if you
that's my
can't hold a
deal
debate.
though.
But that's what
They
people
will
want.
stop gaslighting when the gaslighting doesn't work anymore. But since the gaslighting is still working, why would you stop doing what works? It doesn't make any sense to stop doing what works.
It's a bad look. It's a
But
terrible
It
bad look.
is.
no, it's not. Not to their base.
Oh
Not to
yeah,
you
because
that
y'all
talking
vote blue.
to.
I mean, people gonna
No,
vote
it's a
Democrat are gonna
bad
vote.
look. It's a bad look for the theory of democracy. It's a bad look for the theory of how government should work. But it makes perfect sense for the realities of the moment. If I mean, I enjoy talking, so I would do it if
I'll be
my
like, yeah,
advisors
sign
would
me
let
up.
me.
Where you at? Where you
But
willing to
for the
debate at? The
most
park,
part,
the dark, or anywhere?
there's no upside though, Tracy. There's none.
That means he's
No
gonna take
upside.
off a whole year. He's gonna look. See, this 2 or
Yes.
3. That's not
We
gonna
get more
work.
policy talk out of any town halls.
Nope. None
You
of
can get
those.
okay, so town halls you can get a little bit of something because they take questions, but the problem is they've already decided what questions get
The
thrown.
questions are, and
Um,
that's the
Right.
media's fault. Part of this is the media's
right.
fault because they get these corporate. They're not gonna get somebody like me to ask the questions because it's gonna go all the way left. They're never gonna. Not that I'm a journalist, but they're not
Exactly.
gonna get somebody like me to ask the question because I'm gonna be like, why is the minimum wage $20? Why?
Well, they'll spend you an answer for that.
And they'll
The
tell you
problem is they won't answer it though,
they're not going to answer that
right?
And then
question.
I'll be like,
What
could
they'll
you
do,
answer the question and
No,
don't give me
no, no,
some.
Tracy. No,
but
you
you don't
won't.
get a follow up.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, you won't.
I know, and it's purposely set up for that
I'm
way.
just
I
telling
don't
you.
like the debates. Don't get me wrong. I
You
hate the
got one.
debates
You
because they
got one
never do
question. They're
anything.
gonna give you something about why we don't have $20, and they're gonna tell you something about Daffy Duck and them and Disney and the Little
And
Mermaid
I'm be like,
and
my
everything
question
else other than
was,
answer your question. Your mic is turned off, and they don't walk away to go to somebody else that's gonna say, "Why you like the color
no,
blue
because
more than
usually in a
red?"
debate, there's 1 or 2 moderators. There's one
Oh,
on
One of the rules
okay.
about
Let me
politics.
rephrase what I'm saying. Then I thought you talking about people in the audience. Sorry.
Oh no, they just shut
I'm
them out.
sorry.
They not allowed to
They
ask
will
questions.
never ever pick you as a moderator.
No, I know. They never.
They would not. They
Period.
absolutely.
But
I
what I was
know
going to
that.
say is, remember, in politics, you don't answer the question you were asked. You answer the question that you wanted to be asked.
Yeah, that you want to
Right?
answer.
That's
Mm.
rule number one. Right? So if you go out there and you say, "Tell me what is your position on the minimum wage being at $15," and then they'll say, the American worker is struggling right now, trying to make ends meet, and we have to make sure we work to get inflation down.
Yeah, some
But
answer ain't
that
got nothing to
Obama
do
or
with what I
Biden,
just said.
right? But you
Trust me.
don't get to follow up,
And
right?
that's the
So
way.
Yeah.
That's the corporate. That's why I said it's partial. Some part of this
it's
is
not
the
even.
corporate media's fault
It
because
is. It's the corporate thing, but
it's a
it's also
combination.
our fault.
Yeah,
It's
because
our fault. If we stop watching them and the ratings
Which I
plummeted,
am.
the national media will be like, "Wait a minute, we're not making money. All right, so we're gonna ask different
Mm.
questions." Right?
I'll put it
We
to you this.
also are to blame here.
I'll put it to you this
I
way.
can
From
see that.
this point on, I don't watch debates. I
You
watch.
mean you want to watch where old girl said that's why we don't take Scott anywhere because he's polling at 0%, and then Scott turned around and said, "No, I'm polling at 1%."
And you know where I got that from? A YouTube clip.
Got that from
That's
you.
pretty much what I'm going to do from this point on. I am no longer going to sit there. Nah,
Yeah,
we
because
got to
they
move. We got
lied
to
when they
move on
sat
because
there
we're
and
going to get
talked.
over.
But
Because we're
yeah,
already going to go over.
my least the favorite debate, and I'll say this and I'll shut up. Probably won't. But anyway, I didn't like the Georgia debate where Herschel Walker didn't show up and Warnock just completely ignored the guy. Like, he's standing right there. Why don't you address that guy? You see him? It's like just
Yeah, I
okay.
watched that debate,
Oh my
but he
gosh,
didn't do it because there was no political upside to doing it. That man on that stage with him was dangerous. So I'd rather just ignore you. You ain't got no like Trump said. You're polling at 3%. Why am I going to talk to you?
But he was standing right there. At least acknowledge
Hey,
him. Be like, hey, the
that's
libertarian's
like
right there. I'm
y'all
not
people
going to
who
address
all
him.
y'all out there talking about this Marianne Williamson stuff. It's the same thing. Look at what they did to her.
She's polling at
Really, because I
6%.
don't care nothing. I don't care nothing about the lady, so I can look at it a little bit more dispassionately. This lady threw her hat in the ring. She is a bona fide politician. I don't know how credible she is because to me she's a little out there, but she deserves to be taken seriously because she's been in the game and she comes out consistently and she has a platform. But what did they do? They pretty much ignored her and played her as something crazy the moment she announced.
Yep.
And then to make matters worse, though, the moment RFK, a real crazy person, puts his hat in the
Oh, yeah,
ring,
let's support
he is
this one.
he's clearly a Manchurian candidate for the right. That's all he is. He's there to just create chaos and mayhem. And the media said, "Hey, that's a man over there. Let's listen to him."
Yep.
Mm.
So he gets a lot more play
Yeah,
than
I'm for
Marianne
Medicare
ever
for
got.
all in theory, but I don't think it's going to happen. Boy, either you're for it or against it.
Man,
Oh,
I
and
ain't
it's
even trying to hear him on that level. That man is loony. That's
All
a
right,
dangerous man.
all right, everybody. We really got to stop because we're already going to go over. So